Elizabeth Warren and Scott Brown squared off in the second of 4 debates last night in Lowell, Massachusetts. This one hosted by UMass Lowell and the Boston Herald and moderated by our very own David Gregory. The two candidates clashed on topics ranging from the economy and taxes to Warren's Native American heritage and whether or not Brown would be a stooge for a future President Mitt Romney.
You support Governor Romney for president, I assume.
Well, as I said, he's going to, when it comes to dealing with the economic issues, yes, absolutely. But we're two different people. I mean,
But you'd be a reliable ally when it came to his economic plan.
Listen, it comes down to what the issue is. It's difficult to get
on his economic plan, because you said there's nobody better than him, that no one I would trust more than Governor Romney.
Well, I also would like to read the bills, as I do, because a lot of people don't read the bills down there. I want to read them, see how they affect Massachusetts, our country, our debt, and our deficit, and vote. I am a reliable vote for the bill.
Theme of the evening, independence good, partisanship bad.
They vote about 50% with my party and about 50% with the Democratic Party, and that's a lot different than what Professor Warren would do to be in lockstep.
When Senator Brown talks here in Massachusetts about how very bipartisan he is and how very independent he is, he's sure not saying the same thing when he goes raising money in this Senate campaign.
Aliens watching the debate could be forgiven for thinking that voting in lockstep is a criminal offense. So often was it used by the candidates to tarnish one another. Warren accused Brown of consistently voting with Republican leadership to block jobs bills put forward by the president, while Brown said that compromise was a foreign concept to the ultra-liberal Warren. As with all political events, this evening was not without its gaffes.
Can you name some Republicans in the Senate today that you are able to work with on big issues, substantive issues that the country faces?
Oh, I think probably Richard Lugar would be one that would come to mind. But let me...
He's not going to be there.
He's not going to be there.
So who else could you name, Senator?
That is a problem.
Who's your model Supreme Court justice?
Let me see here. That's a great question. I think Justice Scalia is a very good judge. Justice Kennedy. Justice Kennedy is obviously very good, and Justice Roberts. Justice Sotomayor. I think they're very qualified people there who actually do a very good job.
Scalia and Sotomayor don't exactly.
Well, you know what? That's the beauty of being an independent, David.
Okay.
Joining us now from Capitol Hill, my celebrity doppelganger, the sage, Luke Russert. Luke, some interesting hijinks last night there on the part of both Scott Brown and Elizabeth Warren. Let's focus on Scott Brown first. I thought the fact that he did not want to be associated, very clearly did not want to be associated with Mitt Romney was interesting and definitely trying to put some sunlight between him and the obstructionist Congress that he is a part of. What did you make of it?
Absolutely, Alex, and that's one of his keys to victory, to try to get that crossover vote. Folks who are going to vote for Barack Obama for president but do not want to send an all-Democratic ticket from the Massachusetts delegation to Washington. But when he's saying that, well, he had said to Mitch McConnell he wasn't satisfied with the direction which Congress was going and would he vote for him? Well, Mitch McConnell is the only Republican on the ballot for senator. So if you don't vote for him, you're pretty much going to be excommunicated. He has to go along with Mitch McConnell. So I found that fascinating. The Supreme Court Justice Scalia, known as to be a favorite amongst Republicans, that's probably not going to do too well with independents in the state of Massachusetts. But, Alex, the most important number here is that amount of folks who are undecided in the state, 18%. And why is it that high this close to the election? Elizabeth Warren has seen a surge in the polls recently. A lot of Democrats seem to have warmed up to her. They're fired up to get behind her. But I went to college in Massachusetts. I know a lot of folks in Massachusetts. I spent a ton of time there. I was making phone calls today to folks who I know are independents. And I said, what is it about Elizabeth Warren that are you still hung up on, that you will not support her, even if you support the president? And the answer comes down to personality, that there's just this idea we don't necessarily like her. There's a likability gap between her and Brown. It's up to Democrats in these next few weeks to go at Scott Brown's temperament. I think you're going to hear a lot in the next few days about his comment that I'm not some sort of student in your class. Was that coming across as too harmful? And you'll probably also start to see is Scott Brown really as nice a guy as he says he is when he's going to join the GOP out of the comfort of a 6-year Senate term and go at them, and the stuff against Violence Against Women Act, not moving quick enough on the DREAM Act, things of that nature.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
No one really got out and ahead last night.
The no more Mr. Nice Guy thing is maybe going to be an issue for Scott Brown. Jonathan, as Luke said, Brown leads Warren 58 to 27% on most likable, but Warren wins 47 to 42 on helps working people. That to me is really interesting. They don't like her as much, but they think her heart is in the right place.
They think her values. Well, think about it. I mean, here you have the president is likable, and the people also think while things are bad that he's the one who cares about them. How Elizabeth Warren will bring the personality and she cares about us thing together is going to be really tough, because as we've seen, I mean, the reason why pollsters ask these questions and the reason why we focus on the likability question is because it matters.
What does likability mean? Does it mean that Scott Brown has a pickup truck? It is. I mean, to me, I understand that in Massachusetts, there seems to be also a kind of predisposition against electing women to positions of power.
Well, it's a tough road for women in Massachusetts.
Scott Brown has worked odiously and assiduously to kind of attach this label to Elizabeth Warren of the professor, which in my mind should be a good tag. But she is certainly someone who's teaching the Democrats how to fight for working people. Yep. She's spoken about being on your side. And I think it's worth noting that Fortune magazine has called Scott Brown Wall Street's favorite senator, and he has taken more money from real estate, insurance, and financial industry than any congressional candidate or member of Congress. And those things matter, and how you communicate it, as Jonathan was suggesting, does become very important. But the key thing is, a vote for Scott Brown is one step closer toward a Republican Senate.
Right, and that is...
What does that mean? It means Inhofe is head of the Environment Committee, a climate denialist, and it means a Republican Senate, which could dismantle the social contract and more.
Luke, it seems like Scott Brown almost has a case of the mitts insofar as he has to tread this difficult line between the conservatives. The Scalia question to me was really, the answer was really weird. He just seemed to then rattle off the names of Supreme Court justices as if to prove that he knew that they sat on the bench. But wants to appear as an independent, but knows, as you said, look, Mitch McConnell is going to be his boss if he gets reelected. Boston Globe poll says that most voters think Scott Brown, 20% think he's heavily influenced by the GOP, 41% think he's sometimes influenced by the GOP, and 33% think he's independent.
And it goes back when he got elected. Originally, his campaign in 2010 was, well, it's not the Democratic seat, it's not the Kennedy seat, it's the people's seat. And that appealed to a lot of folks in Massachusetts who wanted to shake things up, as you saw it in the last election of 06 and 08 and 2010 around the country. What his issue is going to be, though, going forward is how much will he be tied to Mitch McConnell and the Senate GOP leadership. Remember when he came here in 2010, he was the pivotal vote against health care. Scott Brown, 41. Republicans want to see more of that. He's trying to go away from that. It's really difficult to gauge. If he has a 6-year term, will he be as independent as he says he will be? I think that'll be the question that Massachusetts voters end up making, and how they decide on that will determine whether or not Scott Brown is victorious.
Luke, I always think of you as the hardest working man in Congress, but it's being proven by the fact that that is an empty hallway there, sir. And your voice is echoing in surround sound because nobody's working on Capitol Hill.
Someone has to work, although Nancy Pelosi is here today holding a hearing about Medicare, so there is something for us Capitol Hill reporters to do.
We're glad you're holding it up for us on the news side, my friend. NBC's Luke Russert, thank you as always.
Take care.